there's one, and then I'll turn all this back up here. And goes off to the side. All right. As this one's coming on, is there anything else that you maybe thought about along that same line of questioning about your background for a career in music?
No, it's interesting because your questions prompted me to probe some areas that I've actually never really probed before, okay. And I think it was pretty. I think it was pretty much not exhaustive, but it was. I can't think of anything I go crap. I wish I had said that. So.
Yeah, no, it's good. When some of this research first came up, I actually contacted my old high school band director who's now retired just to say, hey, I'm doing this project, and I just thought back about why I did this, and it was because you gave me an opportunity to teach.
I would say this. I would say, if anything, I was drawn to music, not necessarily the medium, and that would be Harvey McClure.
Okay,
absolutely. And then Ed Hickman, my high school band director. Yeah. Got me into writing music, and then Johnny Long made me realize I could take what Harvey McClure gave to me and I could apply it to instrumental music, which I'd already been pouring all my energies into. Okay. So I would say that it came up like that.
Yeah, and that's one of the next things we're looking at. So individuals who choose to pursue a career in music, what's that point that differentiates I want to teach, I want to perform, and now even I want to compose, arrange, do music business, kind of what, since most of our students all come from the same background, they were in choir, band, or orchestra as kind of their primary high school background, what then made them decide to go into performance or teaching or business or technology or composition now? So.
Well, I think of course for each individual, I think that's going to be an individual and a unique answer for them too. So are you asking me in general what I think? Yeah. Well, what I think would be purely speculation given that. And let me just say this. I don't push my kids into a career in music at all. And that goes back to our previous conversation of the older I get, I really believe this. I don't think this is necessarily a profession that we choose, that chooses us. I was at a clinic in Loyola. We go down to the Jazz Festival every so often. Mm-hmm. Was it Benny Carter that was doing a clinic? And, of course, you got all these kids there asking questions like, well, how do you do this? Or what about that? Or pop, how do you improvise? Or what do you do? And he's giving them all these kind of vague, esoteric, how you teach improvisation anyway, right? Trying to do it. And I thought, and this happens frequently when I attend clinics, is that they're asking the wrong question. So he said, yes, sir. I said, how do you get to where you are? How can these guys get from here to there? How does that work? And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, if there's anything else in this world that you can do, then go do it. He actually discouraged them. If you've got aspirations to be an engineer or an architect, then go do that. If you have aspirations to be a doctor or a lawyer, then you need to go do that. Don't do this as a full-time gig. Now, my supposition, I'm hearing what he's saying, but I'm also interjecting what he's not saying, which is the other side of that is, on the other hand, if there's nothing else you can do, then go do it. Then throw it into it. Don't go, well, I'm going to do this, but I'm also going to kind of do the engineering thing too. This doesn't work like that. Now, if you want to keep it as an avocation, as a hobby, as recreation, that's great. But if you think you're going to make a career in music and then study architecture at the same time, that's not happening.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I had the same conversations with a lot of students who come to see me because they're not sure if they want to. They want to do something in music, they think, but they want to use teaching maybe as a backup, right? Because they're a sax or euphonium player and they can't do what? They can't get a performance gig. So I had those same conversations. It's not about music versus the other, but by the time they come to visit me, they've got their heart pretty much set on music, or so they think they do. And so then it's, well, I'm going to use teaching as a backup. And so I kind of had the same conversation with them. this this isn't a backup plan, right? If there's something else you really want to do, pursue that, because the requirements of a teacher ed program, even versus a performance program, are pretty stringent. Yeah.
Now it's insane.
It is.
It's insane, and there's a lot less jobs out there too. So think about that. So anyway, to answer the question, what do I think that point is where they go from performing to teaching? That's a very good question, and I don't really have an answer to it. We don't push kids. I do not push kids into music education. Now, when we see kids that are practicing real hard and that are making All-State and that are really putting into it, then we'll kind of go, Joe Artavino, what do you want to do? What do you think you want to do? He goes, well, I don't know. You know, he applied and got accepted into Peabody.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be able to go or not because of the money.
He'll be with us.
That's okay, and he's cool with that.
No, there's graduate school opportunities, right?
And he and I talked. And he and I talked about that too.
That's right.
I may be answering your question by relaying this conversation, but Joe said, we talked about that. He's really worried about the money, and I know Lori's not crazy about him going off, and I wouldn't be either. He's a little young for that, but I said, hey. Kevin Kirschby kind of paved this way for you. He went to Montevallo, then he went to Louisville, and now he's got a playing gig, So, there's plenty of time for that in graduate school. You're young enough, and you can do that.
Yeah.
When you see those kids that are hungry, that have fallen that calling, then it's kind of easy to kind of ask them, well, what is it that you think you want to do? And kind of guide them and steer them in that direction.
Okay.
The other side of this coin, we had a student that got interested in composition. And so, but he knows basically nothing about music theory. And he got a couple of apps on his computer and just, but he doesn't know what he's doing. So, and we tried to sit him down and said, look, let's just do, he gave us this piece to look at, and he listened to some Frank DeKelly and to some John Mackey, and just literally vomited notes on a page. That made no sense. It was just gibberish. And he wanted us to look at it and what we thought about it. I said, well, what's your favorite tune? What's your favorite hymn tune? Let's start with that. Well, he won't do it. He just wants to do this.
Do what he sees on paper.
Right. He doesn't want to go through the process. And so it's like, okay, this isn't going to work for you. Joe Artavino comes in here and practices every day. Ashton Bowles, who is
I remember Ashton, from summer camps and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. So when you see those kids, then you start asking them, Sam and Rick are a little interesting. I don't know how much of their heart's really in it. Would you disagree with that?
No, and that's they've continued to waffle. I know Rick is actively pursuing teaching. He's applying for positions now. Sam wants to go. I think he's decided now he wants to be a music librarian. Yeah, so
So they're figuring it out.
Well, he's done some work study in the library on campus and is trying to find a way to kind of combine those two. And that actually is a neat area. A lot of libraries look for someone with a musical background to kind of manage their music collection.
Absolutely. And you're still going to play on the side and still be involved in other things. Okay.
So he's looking at graduate school for that, I think. I think Rick maybe wants to try his hand at teaching a little bit.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, when they were coming through, I felt like they were chasing a legacy so much instead of a passion. Whereas Joe's chasing a passion, I think. So I guess that's the bottom line. Which kids really seem to have the passion? Figuring out which kids have a passion for this, which students that you think really feel a call to this, and which kids just said, man, I had a great time in band. I think I want to do that. Because that's
right. No, and that's interesting that you mentioned those three, because having worked with all of them, you kind of see even from the same family how there are different levels of I know I want to do this.
Yeah, well, I mean, my kids, they wouldn't touch it. They came through the band program. My daughter's a vocal major, and she does some